Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing some beautiful no-line watercoloring featuring brand new products from Altenew. Now, before you head out, just let me tell you, I am no watercolor expert. If I can do this, so can you. I'll be featuring the brand new Lovely Flowers press plate set from Altenew. This is really beautiful. It's got some great sentiments, including those banners, which I love. And there's some tinier sentiments, some focal sentiments, but I really wanted to show you this gorgeous floral kind of focal image that I'll be using on my card today. It's nice and large. It actually covers more than an A2 card front, so this is perfect for using on something like a 5x7 card. But let me show you it compared to this A2 size card front. So you can see that you can use this in a variety of different ways for a variety of sizes of cards. Now for my watercoloring today, I'm actually going to be using Altenew's Fresh Dye Inks. I'll be using the new Tranquility bundle at the top, which is these gorgeous blues, and the Delectable Delights, which is at the bottom. These are kind of some more neutrals. Now I want to say that normally I am not a blue person, but the Dark Night and Nimbus, the Cloudy Sky, those are all existing cardstock colors from Altenew, and I love them. And so I wanted to use them for this card today. Now I am going to be using this for better press because this is a press plate, and you can see I have my chase here and my platen. The chase is kind of the base of the better press system, and the platen is that clear plate. Now in the chase, there is this magnetic mat, which I'm holding in my hand here, and it has a tendency to kind of want to slip around inside of the base of the chase. And so in order to kind of rectify that, what I like to do is place it into the base of the chase. You can see it's moving around there. And then I will take some Altenew satin masking tape and run it across the bottom of this magnetic mat to kind of hold it in place. This kind of takes away a little bit of that wiggle so that if I need to double press something or repress the image, everything will stay in the same place and I won't have to worry about that kind of wiggling just kind of off to where I don't get a perfect image. Now for this, I'm going to be using some watercolor cardstock, and I'm using a piece that's larger than I need because I will trim this down later to fit my card front. And I'm using that satin masking tape again to adhere my watercolor cardstock to the platen. Now I'm going to take this Lovely Flowers press plate and center it right up on that magnetic mat, and I'm going to leave it there. I don't want it to move around as I'm doing my work because I want to be able to press multiple times if I need to. Now to better press my image, I'm actually using the Permanent Mist Gray Pigment ink from Altenew. This is a perfect no-line coloring ink, and you can see I'm kind of twisting the ink and tapping the ink all over the plate. Now once I have that plate inked up, I'm going to take the platen and place it onto the magnetic feet of the Better Press chase, and then I'll run this through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And what that's doing is it's pressing the image and the ink into that watercolor cardstock that I have adhered to the platen. Now this is a very light image, and that's by design because we want to be able to create this no-line watercolor effect. Now to try to help you see it a little bit better as I'm working, I went ahead and pressed this a second time. So you can see I'm inking up my plate again, and then I'll place the platen back onto those magnetic feet of the chase and run that through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And now my image is just a little bit darker. We don't want this image too dark because we want to create that no-line watercolor effect. Now I am going to take, while I have my Better Press system out, and I'm going to press a few of the sentiments from this Lovely Flowers press plate set. So I have a couple of the focal sentiments onto that magnetic plate and a couple of those little strip sentiments as well. And once again, I'm going to be pressing these onto some watercolor cardstock. For this, I'm going to be using the Dark Night ink, which is a beautiful, deep, dark navy color. Again, I'm kind of twisting and pressing the ink onto the plates to make sure I get them inked up really well. And once I have them inked, I will take the platen, place it onto the magnetic feet of the chase, and then I will run this entire thing through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine to press those sentiments into that watercolor cardstock. Now, keep in mind, I am using these press plates today to do a better press letterpress technique, but press plates can also be used to hot foil as well. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with a press plate because there's multiple techniques that you can do with these plates. You can also do a blind emboss technique as well. Now for the watercoloring, I am going to start this, and I've obviously sped it up because it did take a little bit of time, but I wanted to kind of walk you through this just a bit. I have pressed my ink colors onto a kind of clear plastic. This is actually a stamp pocket here. And I have some clean water up there in that jar with the gold rim. I have a watercolor brush. You're going to see my head a little bit here because I left the entirety of the watercoloring in here. Now I'm starting with a very light color of blue. This is the Cloudy Sky. And it's kind of diluted down, and that's on purpose because I'm just adding a little bit of color to these flowers. And you can see I'm working on flowers that aren't directly next to each other because I don't want to work with a wet flower next to a wet flower because the colors will kind of bleed into each other. Now, once I have that lighter color laid down, I'm going to come in with the medium color and add that to the edges of the petals and kind of the center of the petals where there would be some shadow or shading here. I'm building up these colors in layers because I don't want to go too hard from the beginning with the color because I can't really take it back. So I'm kind of starting with softer color and then building it up as I go. Now, the cool thing that I noticed about having this pressed into the watercolor cardstock is that the impressed lines of that press plate into that watercolor cardstock kind of help hold this ink in place. Now, these aren't true watercolors that I'm using today. They're fresh dye inks, but they are water reactive, and you can see I'm getting really great results with this no-line watercoloring. Once again, I want to mention that I am no expert when it comes to watercoloring. I've watched a lot of watercoloring videos on YouTube, but what I'm doing is I'm just taking and building up colors in layers. Now, when this is all said and done, it's going to look almost like I freehanded this because you're not going to be able to see those soft gray lines that were created by the press plate. And that's kind of a really cool effect of all of this. Now you can see I'm working on flowers that kind of overlap each other. And when I'm doing that, I want to make sure that one flower is lighter and one flower is darker, and that there's some differentiation on the petals that overlap each other. So if it's the frontmost flower, I want it to be a little bit darker than the one that's kind of tucked behind it. So you'll see that I've created some darker flowers. Those are kind of my front flowers. And now I'm creating kind of some lighter flowers that are going to kind of tuck behind it. Now I will add a little bit of shading along those, but I want to keep them kind of two different colors or tones or shades of blue so that you can definitely tell that there are multiple flowers there, that it's not just one big blob of a flower. Now for the greens, I'm using swamp green and oak moss to add some color to all of the stems and the leaves. And I'm just using two colors to make some light and dark on all of these vines and florals. So I'm starting out with the swamp green, and then I'll shade it in with the oak moss to add a little bit of shading and shadow. Now, I'm not the kind of person that overthinks shadows, but I do like to have, some lighter and some darker areas. So if that intimidates you, like thinking about your light source and all of that, don't do that. I didn't do that at all. I just made sure that I had some light areas and some dark areas. Now I'm using this kind of more neutral brown color and tapping it into the center of my flowers. This is from the Delectable Delights color family that was just released from Altenew. Tapping that into the center of the flowers, and then I can kind of pull up wherever I've gotten a little too heavy-handed. I can go in with a more solid layer if I need to. But you can see that I'm just kind of looking at areas and then going back and filling in, adding layers of color. I put on, I think, a Hallmark Christmas movie, or it was a Great American Family Christmas movie, and allowed that to play as I was doing this. And I just really enjoyed the process. I have to admit, I am one of those people that has to be in the mood to do a project like this. Coloring is not always relaxing. It's not something I always choose to do. But today I was really feeling it, and I thought this press plate would be the perfect product to kind of use for a technique like this. Now, if you're feeling intimidated by a technique like this, I want to say try it out. You might be surprised. It's not as difficult as you may think it would be. And keep in mind, the more that you do something like this, the better you're going to get. Now, here's where I decided I wanted to add a little bit of shading around the outside of this image, but I didn't want it to kind of blend too much into the florals that I had just created. I am using a blue. I'm using that Misty Morning, but I'm making sure that it has plenty of water kind of mixed with it to just give a slight little shadow around this. And look at what I created. I actually surprised myself with this one because, as I said, I'm no expert when it comes to watercolor. Now, before I start working with this, I want to make sure that it's dry so that I don't mess anything up, because I am going to be die cutting this down to make a smaller panel out of it. I'm using some A2 precision layering dies from Spellbinders. I use these all the time, and I'm just framing up the portion that I think I want, and I'll run this through my Impress die cutting machine, and I'll end up with a panel here that's perfect for an A2 size card. Keep in mind, I could have used a larger die set and cut this down for a 5x7 card as well. Now, these sentiments that I created earlier, I'm using a trimmer to just trim those banner sentiments or those strip sentiments down. And then I'm going to fussy cut this friend sentiment. There are no dies available for these sentiments or this press plate set, so I just had to bite the bullet and do a little bit of fussy cutting. It honestly didn't take too long. You'll notice that as I'm fussy cutting, I'm kind of turning the paper rather than turning the scissors too much. That helps me get a nice clean line along the edge of that pressed word. Now, overall, I want to keep this card really simple because I want that no-line watercoloring to be the star of the show. So I didn't mind spending a little bit of time kind of fussy cutting this sentiment. And once I had that done, it was all about assembly now. I'm using some tape runner adhesive to adhere this panel onto a panel of brushed gold cardstock that I cut with a die that was slightly larger than the one I used to cut my panel. I'll just press that down. And then I'm going to adhere the sentiments that I created using some foam adhesive. I like to use a pair of tweezers to pick up my sentiments and kind of keep my hand out of the way. I'm going to try to nestle it right down towards the lower center, but offset just slightly. But you can see how I'm nestling that friend word kind of right in with that darker blue flower that sits above it. So I'm just kind of looking at how it kind of sits in relation to the florals, and then I'll press that down. Now, for embellishments, Altenew has just released these new Milky Way gem sparkles. I'm going to use a few of those. I thought these nice white gems were a great way to add a little bit of sparkle and shine without detracting from the overall design too much. They kind of just sit there and shine, but they don't like demand attention. Now, for the card base, I've cut some Dark Night cardstock. It's cut to 5.5 by 8.5 inches, and then I scored it at 4.25 and then just pressed along that crease with my bone folder. And this will be my card base. Now, if you're concerned about a dark colored card base, remember you can always nest a piece of white cardstock on the inside to write your personal message. I'm adding this entire panel onto the card base using some foam adhesive because I like big cards and I cannot lie. I like a lot of dimension on my cards, but keep in mind that's always a step you can skip. So that finishes off my card today, featuring the brand new Lovely Flowers press plate and some no-line watercoloring using the Altenew Fresh Dye Inks. I think it's great that these inks are very versatile. You can use them for a variety of techniques. They're great for blending, they're great for watercolor, and they're also great for stamping and letterpress, as you've seen here today. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. Also, don't forget to join me on Instagram today because this project is a part of an Instagram hop celebrating the brand new December release from Altenew, and you don't want to miss out on all the inspiration and prizes. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the paper crafting, card making, and live streams that I share here. Thanks again for stopping by, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.